Now, I know many of you out there in the strange and mysterious stories audience are familiar with David Paulides and his book series, Missing 411, from channels like Mr. Ballin and The Missing Enigma. Well, because those videos are so engaging, and because I too am a huge fan of the strange and mysterious, I went out and bought the whole set. Now, keep in mind, I come from a family of hunters in Minnesota. So imagine my dismay when within the first 50 pages of the first book, I run across a story of a missing hunter in northern Minnesota. Here is the strange case of Kory Kelly. Kory Kelly was born and raised in Crookston, Minnesota, amidst the fertile wildlife area of northern Minnesota. And he loved it. He loved fishing and hunting. And as the years went by, he loved sharing his passion for those things with his two sons, Brady and Casey. And I think it's fair to say that when he was out in nature, he was in his happy place. So it certainly didn't surprise anybody when he planned a grouse hunting trip to the Red Lake Wildlife Management Area, northeast of the town of Foretown, Minnesota. Now, grouse are a small game bird related to turkeys and chickens, and they are about the same size and weight as a chicken. And hunting them here in Minnesota, it's a pretty popular thing to do. And he was planning on spending a couple of days in the area with his friend and hunting partner, Jim Neprud, and Jim's yellow lab, Sammy. Now, the two hunters arrived at their familiar campsite on the afternoon of October 16th, 2006. And it wasn't long after they got the campsite all set up that Jim realized they forgot to bring gas. So he says, you know what, you guys stay here. I will run into town and pick up the gas. And as he left camp about 5:30, the last thing that he saw was Kory holding his shotgun with Sammy right next to him, heading out into the woods to start their hunt. And when Jim returned about 7 o'clock, he could tell that Kory had been there because he had started to collect some firewood for the evening. But at that moment, neither Kory nor Sammy were anywhere to be found. And the shotgun was gone too. So Jim just assumed that Kory had gone out again to do more hunting. But in Minnesota, in October, by 7 o'clock, it is starting to get dark. And that night, it was starting to rain. And Jim started getting nervous. And the temperatures had been in the mid-50s that day. But with the sun going down and with this weather moving in, they were starting to drop pretty fast. And Jim knew that Kory was dressed well for the 50-degree weather, but he didn't know how well he was going to fare now that he was probably all wet. And as the evening dragged on into night, Jim actually started to honk the horn and flash the lights on his truck, hoping that if Kory had lost his way to the campsite, he could create this beacon for him and he could find his way back. But nothing. He wakes up at 4 a.m. and Kory and Sammy are still not there. So he gets up to go look for them. And he went out about 2 miles from the campsite before he decided to come back in case Kory came back to the campsite. And in that trip, he saw no sign of either Kory or Sammy. And eventually, a couple of people were passing by the campsite. So Jim managed to flag them down and say, hey, my friend is missing out in the woods. Would you please alert the sheriff's department for me? Now, the campsite is about a half a mile inside the border of Beltrami County. So Beltrami County Sheriff Keith Winger immediately started to organize a search, starting at the campsite and fanning out from there. And even though searchers were on foot and using ATVs, the search was really hard. It's a very difficult area to navigate because of all of the swamps and bogs and tall grass. And the search was massive, eventually activating 62 different agencies, hundreds of volunteers, and it clocked over 6,500 man hours. And the community support was amazing, with the Department of Natural Resources coming to kind of their search headquarters area every day to build campfires for the family so that they could stay warm while they waited to hear any news about Kory. And volunteers would come and sit with them. And a D&E officer actually carved walking sticks for Kory's parents. And some companies actually paid their employees to take time to go help with the search effort. But plenty of people took time off with no pay just to help. And every day, people from the nearby town of Grigla would drive 32 miles each direction just to bring food for the volunteers. Even the Canadian Air Force, stationed in Winnipeg, Manitoba, sent planes to do flyovers. On Wednesday, October 25th, 9 days into the search, Sammy was found. And he was immediately taken to a vet who ran some tests, but concluded that other than being hungry and being severely dehydrated, he was in pretty good shape. 3 days later, searchers found Kory's cigarettes and lighter. And a day after that, trackers found his hooded sweatshirt, his overalls, his hat, his socks, and a shotgun shell from the type of gun he was carrying, in almost a perfectly straight line following a drainage ditch that ended 14 miles from camp. On October 30th, 2 weeks into the search, Beltrami County Emergency Management Coordinator Beryl Wernberg announced that the bad weather that was coming in, that had already dropped 2 inches of snow in the area, was forcing her department to temporarily suspend their search efforts. And searchers went back to the area on November 7th, November 9th, and November 22nd, working in dense forest and swamp, but found nothing else. And on November 23rd, the search, which had long ago moved from a rescue operation to a recovery operation, was terminated until the spring. Fast forward to the following April, and the Beltrami Sheriff's Department once again took to the air to try to search that area where all of those personal items had been found the previous October. And on April 28th at 10:20 a.m., just 2 hours into their first day of resuming that search, Kory's body was found just 15 feet off of the trail. An autopsy was performed, and the coroner determined that Kory had most likely died of hypothermia, a tragic accident that left 2 young boys to grow up without their father and 2 parents having to bury their son. An accident that, but for the grace of God, could happen to any hunter in the far north wilderness. Or not. This case has a lot of unanswered questions. Let's remember, Kory was an experienced hunter who was well prepared with a cell phone, a lighter, warm winter clothing, including a coat, a firearm with ammunition, and a dog. Why would he leave camp to go hunting just when it was about to get dark? As an experienced hunter, he would know that's not a good idea, especially in that swampy, boggy terrain. Now, his body was found 14 miles from his campsite. And the sheriff's department says that they believe that Kory traveled that distance in one night, but they neglect to give any details as to why they believe that. Is it really reasonable to assume that a person, even a relatively fit person, could travel that distance of rugged terrain at night, in the rain, in one night? And why would he be moving at all? As an experienced hunter, he would know that if you are lost, you don't move. You stay where you are and you let the searchers come and find you. You don't keep walking because then you could miss each other. So why wouldn't he have just stayed where he was and used his lighter to build a fire to stay warm? And why didn't he signal for help? He had a cell phone, and okay, the reception probably wasn't the best where he was, but chances are somewhere in that 14-mile hike, he would have pinged a cell tower. But that didn't happen. And why did he take off his clothes? Now, it is true that in the later stages of hypothermia, your muscles have been holding back blood from your extremities, something called vasoconstriction. And those muscles start to get fatigued and let that blood flow back into your extremities, causing that person to feel warm. And when you add in a cold, confused brain, people have been known to start shedding clothing. But in the earlier stages of hypothermia, your body starts making changes to try to generate heat, such as intense shivering, and prevents heat loss by restricting the amount of blood going to the extremities, or that vasoconstriction. So by the time the intense shivering starts, he's going to know he's in trouble. Not only did he have the means to start a fire to warm himself, but he also had Sammy that he could have snuggled with to stay warm. And if he did die the first night, the way the sheriff's department thinks it happened, well, he wouldn't have died of hypothermia anyway because it wouldn't have had time to set in. Yes, the temperature was dropping, and yes, he would have been wet, but the temperatures didn't drop to below freezing until the next day. And he had a gun with ammunition, and as an experienced hunter, he would have known he could have fired a shot in the air to draw people to his location. And why was that gun never found? What about Sammy? Reports say that he had eaten deer meat to stay alive, and that samples of his stomach contents were taken for testing. But there's no evidence that the testing was ever done. So how do they know he ate deer meat? And if he did eat deer meat, where did he get it? A yellow lab is not a hunter the same way that a wolf is a hunter. I have never heard of a domesticated dog taking down a deer. And the report says that he was severely dehydrated. There was more water in that area than he could ever have wanted. How could he have been dehydrated? Dogs aren't exactly shy about drinking whatever water source is available when they're thirsty. And why was Kory's body 15 feet off the trail? If you are lost and want to be found, wouldn't you stay on the trail in a place more likely for people to find you? Not to mention the fact that searchers had already been through that area. So where was he the first time they went through? Now, some reports say that he was found with a lip balm container full of methamphetamine. Mystery solved, right? High on meth and running around like a crazy person. Except the toxicology report came back clean. So what exactly would cause a normal, drug-free human being to freak out and go on a 14-mile rampage, leaving any shred of reason and logic behind? Were his discarded possessions the result of a cold-addled brain? Or could he have been trying to leave a trail? And it seems like the only way he could have traveled that far, that fast, is if he had been running. Running from what? And if you'd like to see some more terrifying deep woods stories, click right here for another trip into the deep, dark woods. And we will see you again on the In-Between.